What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and it's time to officially give you my game prediction here for the 2023 Big 12 Conference Championship game between the Oklahoma State Cowboys and the Texas Longhorns. Earlier today, I gave you the Big 10 Conference Championship game prediction. You go back and watch that video if you have not seen that. They came out a little bit earlier this afternoon, so now I'm going to do the Big 12. And don't forget, we still have the Pac-12 Championship prediction coming up for you tomorrow, and then we got, of course, the SEC on Thursday. So stay tuned for those final two Power 5 Conference Championship predictions coming out tomorrow, and then, of course, on Thursday. Now we're going to do the Big 12 here. Going to give you a game preview / game prediction on this Big 12 Championship. We're going to go through the stat comparisons here between these two teams, give you the game summary of what time the game is going to be this weekend, and who the favorite going into this Big 12 Championship game is. And then we'll give you the previous game results here for both of these teams throughout their 2023 seasons. And then we'll give you the prediction of how I think the game is going to go down. So let's get right into it here with my prediction here for the 2023 Big 12 Conference Championship game between the Oklahoma State Cowboys and the Texas Longhorns. So we'll start with the stat comparisons here between these two teams. We'll start with Oklahoma State. They're coming into this game with a record of 9-3. This team's averaging about 30.2 points per game, so that's a pretty average number here for this Oklahoma State team. You look at the total yards per game for Oklahoma State, about 432.8 yards per total yards this year. I feel like this Oklahoma State offense is a lot better than it was from last year. I think they definitely deserve a lot of credit for what they've done on the offensive side of the football this year. You look at the passing yard numbers for Oklahoma State, about 265.4 yards per passing. You look at their quarterback, Alan Bowman, on the season, about 2,808 yards on the passing yards and everything. So he's had a pretty good season at throwing the football. He's just got 10 touchdown passes though, and about 11 interceptions. So he's been up and down in the touchdown passes, and also a little bit inconsistent with the passing game. But other than that, he's thrown over 2,808 yards on the season. Then you look at the rushing yards for Oklahoma State, about 167.3 yards per rushing this year. You look at their running back, Ollie Gordon II, one of the top running backs in the Big 12 in my opinion, and also one of the top running backs in the country, maybe besides Blake Corum from Michigan. But he's got 1,580 yards of rushing this year and about 20 rushing touchdowns. So he's been having a really dominant season this year, and he's just a sophomore for this Oklahoma State team. And then offensively in the rankings here for the Cowboys are about 30th on offense, so that's a pretty decent number for this Oklahoma State offense. And then defensively, that's been their weakness this year. The defense has not been very good this year for Oklahoma State. They're not the worst defense in the country, but they're definitely the worst defense, in my opinion, in the Big 12. They're sitting there at 115th in the country, so that is definitely not a really good number for this Oklahoma State defense. So those are the stats there for Oklahoma State. Let's now get to the stats here for Texas. They're coming into the game with a record of 11-1, so they've been having a really good season this year. You look at the points per game for Texas, about 35.1 points per game this year, so that's a pretty decent number also for this Texas team. They're not one of the most explosive offenses in the country, but this is definitely a pretty good Texas offense. You look at the total yards per game, about 460.4 yards per total yards this year, so that is a pretty good number for this Texas team. Again, they're not the most explosive offense, but they're really a talented offense either way. Passing yards per game for Texas, about 272.1 yards per passing. Quinn Ewers on the season, about 2,709 total yards on the passing game, and just 17 touchdown passes and just about 5 interceptions. He's been taking care of the football pretty well. He's not throwing a lot of touchdown passes on the season, but I really am impressed of how he's been taking care of the football pretty well. And then you look at the rushing yards for Texas, about 188.3 yards per rushing. So this is a Texas team that can run the football pretty well. You got Jonathan Brooks in the backfield, also a really good running back in the Big 12, about 1,139 yards on the season and 10 rushing touchdowns. So we got two great running backs going at it here in this game this weekend. I think both rushing teams are pretty similar. I know rushing, though, Texas has the advantage there. And then you look at the offensive ranking here for Texas, about 14th on offense, and then defensively they're 27th on defense. So stat comparison wise here between these two teams, again, Texas has the advantage in all these stats and everything, and also pretty much Texas is overall the better team heading into this game. But I tell you what, I think both rushing games are pretty much pretty even. I think both offenses are not pretty even, but I think the rushing yards are both pretty even between these two teams. I know Texas has the advantage in that stat comparison, but both running backs are pretty even as well. So these are the stat comparisons here for both of these teams. Let's now get to the game summary here for this game. So this game here, this Big 12 championship game, is at noon Eastern time on Saturday. It will be on ABC, and the game is at Arlington, Texas, where the Big 12 championship game is held every year. Texas, as of right now, favored by 14.5 in this one, and the over and under is at 55.5. So they're kind of predicting a low-scoring type game in this one. That spread number that Texas is favored by 14.5, that really shocks me there, to be honest. I'm kind of surprised that Texas is favored by double digits in this game, even though Texas has not really looked good in the last, they haven't looked good in the month. They didn't look good in the month of November. Those 3 games in the month of November, 3 out of those 4 games were very tough for them. And then this past weekend, they pretty much, just played their best game in the month of November. I think this is not going to be an easy game for Texas. I don't really see them rolling in this game. I don't really see them winning by 14 either. I think Oklahoma State can pretty much, compete in this game. Defensively is what I'm concerned about for Oklahoma State. If their defense doesn't force the turnovers, I feel like Texas is just going to win this game by a blowout, but I don't really see this game being a blowout. I think, Texas probably will win it by at least double digits, but I don't really see it being a blowout. I don't think Texas is going to win by at least 14 points, but Texas is favored in this game by 14.5, and this is a early kickoff here for both of these teams at noon Eastern time here on Saturday. You look at the FBI, Texas favored in this game by a big margin, by a big percentage. The FBI likes Texas. They give them about an 88.1% chance to beat Oklahoma State here to win the Big 12 championship, and the FBI only gives Oklahoma State about an 11.9% chance to beat Texas here in the Big 12 championship. So it's kind of similar to the Big 10 championship game from earlier. Iowa's not really given a big chance from the FBI to win the Big 10 championship. So this is kind of similar to the Iowa and Michigan prediction from earlier, but I don't think Oklahoma State's going to be doubted in this game. I think they have a really good chance to compete in this game. I'm not saying they're going to win it, but they do have a really good chance to probably keep this game pretty close, because we've seen Texas inconsistent at times, so that could very well be playing into a factor in this game coming up this weekend. But this game's at noon Eastern time on ABC. The game is at Arlington, Texas, and again, the Longhorns are favored by 14.5, and again, they're kind of predicting a little bit of a low-scoring type game in this one, which I very well could see it playing out that way as well. So this is the game summary here for this Big 12 championship game between Texas and Oklahoma State this weekend. Let's now get to the previous game results here for both of these teams. Looking at Oklahoma State, they're coming in with a record of 9-3. You look at their previous game results here. They defeated Cincinnati on October 28, 45-13, so they had a big win there against the newcomer in Cincinnati. They beat their rival Oklahoma here 27-20 in the last game, the official last game between those two rivals on November the 4th, 27-20. That was a big win for them there. Oklahoma was ranked in the top 10 or something like that in that game, and that was a huge win for this Oklahoma State team. But the week after, they took an absolute beatdown against UCF, another one of those newcomers in the Big 12. They lost that game pretty badly, 45-3, so that wasn't their best game of the season. And then they bounced back with a win over Houston on the road, 43-30, so they get a bounce back there, but it was still a big shootout here against this Houston team on November 18th. Then they defeated BYU this past weekend to earn a trip here to the Big 12 championship in double overtime, 40-34 on November 25th. So yeah, that was a pretty big dogfight in that game against BYU. They played 3 of the newcomers here to end out the season. So again, the schedule kind of favored, Oklahoma State for the rest of the year, except they lost that game to UCF. That was an absolute beatdown for this Oklahoma State team. But those are the previous game results there for this Oklahoma State team. And then looking at Texas, they're coming in with a record of 11-1. Their only loss coming, of course, to Oklahoma in the month of October. But they defeated BYU on October 28, 35-6. So that was a big win there for this Texas team. They played really solid defense in that game. Then in the month of November, they defeated Kansas State in overtime, 33-30. Texas had the lead 24-7. Then Kansas State came out of nowhere and started to come back on this Texas team, but Texas was able to hold on for the victory. Then they had a close game against a really good average TCU team on the road, 29-26 on November 11th. Then they headed back on the road again to play Iowa State. They won that game 26-16. So throughout the first 3 weeks of November, Texas really struggled to win, games by big margins. And again, I feel like, Texas was going to lose one of these games. I think that Kansas State game was pretty much, obviously one of their close games they could have lost to, and then TCU as well. They did pull away from Iowa State, though, in the second half of that November 18th game. But then this past Friday, Texas played their best game of the month of November. They defeated their rival Texas Tech 57-7. They obviously blew out their rival. I was really shocked of how that game turned out to be. Obviously I was kind of expecting a close game in that one. But Texas, again, you look at the game result comparisons here between these two teams. Again, Oklahoma State took a beatdown, against UCF on the road 45-3 on November 11th. That was their biggest loss of the season. But again, they ended out, the 2023 with 2 straight wins. And, they earned a trip here to the Big 12 championship with a double overtime win over BYU. They had to win that game to get into the Big 12 championship game here this week. And, Texas did struggle in the month of November. They only had one good game, in the month of November, and that was obviously Texas Tech. But again, Texas here with a big win this past weekend against their rival, against Texas Tech, 57-7. So these are the previous 5 game results here for Texas and Oklahoma State in the 2023 college football season. Let's now get to my prediction here for this game. So it will be Oklahoma State versus Texas in the Big 12 championship this weekend. And again, this will be the last time that we'll see Texas be playing in the Big 12 championship, since they are heading into the SEC next year. And, for Oklahoma State, again, they had to earn a trip here to get to the Big 12 championship. I was kind of projecting to see an Oklahoma and Texas rematch. That's who I had in my preseason picks. But Oklahoma State and Texas is the matchup here this weekend. I don't think this game is going to be a blowout. I think this game is going to be very competitive. How I think the game is going to go down, I think it's going to really be about offenses in this game. I do expect both defenses, to probably a little bit struggle, but I think Texas has the better defense, obviously, going into this game. I think first half, offensively, I think it's a back and forth game. I think in that first half, but second half, I think Texas is definitely going to, look at, the scoreboard like it's 0-0 and everything. And with that being said, Texas is desperate to win a Big 12 championship for the first time in a very long time. They've had some really big ups and downs over the years, and they're kind of desperate to end out their, Big 12, year and everything with a Big 12 championship win before they head to the SEC next year. And I think this is finally their year. I think Texas finally gets it done here in their last year of the Big 12, and I think they do defeat Oklahoma State here. But like I said, in a pretty close game, but I think they do win by at least double digits. And my final score prediction for this game is going to be 34-24. So I got Texas winning the Big 12 championship here. I think this is finally their year. I think they finally finish out the year at 12-1. They probably could make the college football playoff, but we're going to find out on Selection Sunday if they'll be able to make it. But they got to win this game for real this weekend. This is just my official prediction here, so we'll find out if Texas can win the Big 12 here this weekend. But again, this is the final year for the Big 12 for Texas. I think they're desperate to win and, finish out their Big 12, campaign over the year. Their last year in the Big 12 with a really big Big 12 championship win. So I think Texas wins this game by a final score of 34-24. Again, I think Oklahoma State's going to compete in this game, but I think Texas probably will pull away in the second half. And I think Texas wins this game on Saturday, 34-24 in the Big 12 championship. So that's my official Big 12 championship game prediction here for Texas and Oklahoma State. Give me your thoughts down in the comments below. Who do you think wins this game? Do you think Texas wins? Do you think Oklahoma State wins? Also, give me your final score prediction for this game down in the comments below. Don't forget, I'll have my Pac-12 championship game prediction tomorrow, and then I'll have my SEC championship game prediction on Thursday. So stay tuned for those 2 conference championship prediction videos coming out tomorrow, and then of course on Thursday. So stay tuned for those videos. But thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports channel.